Hello, I'm Alison Rendall. So I'm standing here today in the old shop that Kevin and I are currently restoring, and I'm standing behind a counter that is laden with all my knitwear, feeling actually like I could open a shop today because I've got so much stuff. So many ask about my designs and about my influences and about colours, and so today for Shetland Wool Week 2022 I thought that I would just take a look at my knitting over the years and that I would start back to this Gansey that I made when I was 17. So those of you who saw the Shetland Wool Week video last year will be familiar with this jumper, but for those of you who didn't see it, then I'll introduce it now. So this jumper I made out of a bag of assorted colours that was left behind after my nan passed away. My nan, as many of you know, was a big influence in my life, and she taught me a lot about knitting. So I made this, and it is definitely not my best garment. It's not actually even my first garment. It was just something important, and it's become important to me now. The reason for that, of course, is that I have a memory of her. I have a record of where I started, and I also love this thing because it's got so many colours in it that you can't get anymore. So there's actually a record of some old colours as well. So as you can see, I had a lot to learn at this stage about colour, about pattern, about how to get the patterns to stand out, and also about how to shape a garment. It was really not very good. So this next one is another early one. You can see I'm still working with kind of muted earthy colours, and I still have quite a bit to learn at this stage. But I wear this still. It's lasted a very long time, and now I wear it just for rough jobs outside. It's nothing special, but it still keeps me warm. The third one I have here, you can see that I think I'm maybe starting to improve. The patterns are standing out a bit better. I've started to use reds, which is still one of my favourite shades to work with. And again, this is quite an old one that I use for nothing fancy. Now I'm going to move on to this one next. So this is a jumper that I knitted in kind of mostly natural shades, but I have pops of colour just to add interest. I do really like this one, and I wear this one a lot. And I also made a matching one for my partner Kevin. So we very occasionally go around looking very romantic in matching garments. I don't think you'll be getting another one in a hurry. I don't really like making men's jumpers just because of the sheer size, and I always find it a bit difficult. I like to knit on 3 needles, and it's a bit difficult when you start losing your stitches off the end of the needles. But that's those ones. So there's quite a number of Ganseys missing now because I have 3 daughters and a son, and I've knitted for them over the years. So there's a whole middle section there that's all gone to them, and I can't remember everything that I've knitted. But then after that I kind of moved into more tunics. So it was the kind of style that I wore, and I enjoyed wearing the Shetland wool to keep me warm at a longer length. And I think you can see by this stage I was improving as far as colour goes, getting my foreground to stand out a bit better, and also doing a lot of experimenting with background colours changing and foreground colours changing. I also made this little jumper. This one was influenced by something that my mother made when I was a child, and I saw it on a photo one day and decided to update it and add a bit more colour than my mother had in it, but it was influenced by something I wore as a child. Moving on to more recent garments. This is something I've made quite recently. I really enjoyed knitting this one because I've been experimenting with patterns in the vertical. So there's a lot of maths to do before you start with a creation like this. You have to make sure that all your patterns are going to, the numbers of stitches are going to work out right in the round, keeping your patterns vertical and close together. But once you've got it set, then it's quite easy just to, instead of knitting horizontally, to transfer that to vertical. So yes, I was going to show you my swatches. So first thing I did was swatch with a hat. Many people do an actual swatch, and I think that's right, it's the correct thing to do. But for me, I think I'm lazy, I can't be bothered, and I also don't like wasting the wool. So I tend to swatch by making a hat. So this was the first thing I made. And I decided to improve some of the shades and the colours from that. The second thing I made was a sleeveless one. And it's fine, I was reasonably happy with that. But again, I added, made a few more changes and actually took out some of the yellow. I thought it was too many stripes. And then this is my third creation, which was the jumper. And I made a V-neck on this one and some lovely patterns on the arms. So I really like this one better than the sleeveless, because it's got so much more pattern. Now this is my new love, it's knitting yokes. I'm currently knitting a yoke, and this is the one that I've just finished. I haven't really knitted them before because I don't have any machine knitting skills, and usually in Shetland the bodies are knitted on the machines and the arms are knitted on the machines, and then you pick up all the stitches and do your Fair Isle yoke. But I decided just to hand knit the body, and in actual fact I quite enjoyed a bit of plain knitting, it was fine, and I've really enjoyed being able to wear my new yoke. This is the swatch that I did for knitting the yoke. It's reasonable, it's quite nice, but having made the hat I decided to make a few changes, and you can see from the swatch that the pattern now is standing out much better. So after many years of people asking me if I had a pattern for my design and me having to say no, I decided a few years ago that I would give it a go and see how I got on writing patterns. It was a big learning curve because I'm not used to it, but I've managed to produce a few patterns now, and it's been really rewarding seeing people being able to make things and recreate my designs. That was the first one I did, which is the fish hat, which is quite a popular one. And then I did the coral hat using an old Fair Isle design, Fair Isle motif. I also did Vagabond beret, and this one remains very popular, the coral hat. That's probably my most popular pattern. I like berets personally myself to wear, and that's the Björgvin beret. And more recently I've produced the Yoxie hat using this what we call the Walser motif. And this one is called the Underhool hat, and I've experimented here using a bit of pattern in the brim instead of the normal ribbon, and I did the same in this jumper I've quite enjoyed doing that, just adding a little bit of extra pattern in the ribbon. Fair Isle knitting to me is about getting in as much pattern as possible and not having large areas without pattern, and that can be reflected in my gloves also. Now, my nan was the one who taught me to make the gloves, and here is an early example of her knitting. It's the only, in fact, knitting I've got left of hers, but she showed me how to do the patterned cuff in her gloves, and that inspired me to go on to write the pattern for the Vagabond mitts, which are these. So instead of having ribbon for your cuffs, we've got a patterned cuff. I also went on to do these, which are the Hjarta mitts, and these ones with a little picot edge are called the Fredis Mitts. What else can I show you? Yes, this one was made for my daughter, who has got a long thick ponytail, and there was a few people who requested a hat with a hole in the top for the ponytail or some thick hair to go through. So I called that one the Unken hat. Unken meaning something strange, and this is certainly a bit different. This is another thing that little children bairns in Shetland wear, which is the frilly pixies. They've remained popular in Shetland since I was a child. We always see little bairns with these things on. So it's I think it's probably the cold weather. It's nice to have a warm woolly hat for your child. So these are frequently worn by the little children. And this one I designed is called the Filska Bonnet. There's 3 different colourways that I've done. And then just recently for the Walls show, I did a little pair of matching mitts for the hat and child competition in the Was show. I have a pattern for these mitts, and it's called the Terry Mittens. Oh yes, to go back to what I was saying about getting in as much pattern as you can, these gloves I knitted have got patterns in the finger as well, which is the ultimate, having pattern cuffs and fingers, but they are quite a lot of detail to knit. I've also been knitting some little smocks, as we call them, which is the Shetland word for slippers. And this is for me and Kevin to wear, the lobster smocks. Again, a matching set for his and hers. He wanted to have yellow eyes on his lobster. And just to mention as well, the designs for Shetland Wool Week. So 2 years ago I was asked to design a sock. These are my Stourborough socks. This was the first draft, and I had a design running down the side of the sock, and then I modified that to have the design detail running down the back. And I also wanted to mention last year's design, which is the Mittens mitts. So I'm not a very experienced lace knitter, but I do love lace and I like to look at it, and I can do the basics. So I decided for last year's Shetland Wool Week annual to have a little bit of Fair Isle on the hand, and then very basic lace, easy lace on the cuffs. So they look nice, but they're not too challenging to knit. So I made a video discussing these mitts on board the Swan last year. Thanks very much for watching the video today, and it's been a pleasure just showing you how I've progressed through the years. And I think my main message is that when you start and you're not getting good results with colour and pattern, is just to keep going, keep practicing, and it gets easier as time goes on. Thanks.